Good evening. We are live now and I hope you can hear me well. My name is Bart de Pau. Welcome to this free webinar on learndutch.org, in which I am going to explain the correct answers to the questions of the hashtag Dutch Grammar test. I recommend you watch this webinar only if you already did the test. If not, do that first. This webinar will be recorded so you can watch it back later. It is a bit exciting for me because this is the first live event here on learndutch.org. So I hope our server will be able to cope with the traffic. Today we crossed the mark of 2,000 students who did the test, and that's only during the 3 weeks since I published it. The nice thing that such a large audience of students did the test is that it provides a lot of statistics, because we can see which questions are most difficult for Dutch learners. And at the end of this webinar, and that's actually quite interesting, I will show you the top 7 of most made mistakes in the test. And the funny thing is that the number 1 in this top 7, and 70% made this mistake, is actually a very simple rule. And when you know it, I'm sure you won't make this mistake again. There are people who made the test who already bought premium access to my online course hashtag Dutch Grammar before. That also gives some interesting data that I share with you at the end of this webinar. I will show you how these students scored in the test. Especially for the group of existing hashtag Dutch Grammar students, I will mention the number of the lesson when I explain the answers. So then you know which lesson to review if you made a mistake. Okay, if you are ready for it, let's go, let's do the test. Question 1. Ik heb groot huis. We need to choose the article or no article. Well, the last option is not possible. Huis is singular, and only with indefinite plural nouns we don't use articles. But what you need to know here is the rules of applying an extra a to the adjective, something that is discussed in lesson 9 and 10. There we learn that adjectives in front of a noun get an extra a except when it is a het word after the indefinite article een. It is het huis. So the correct answer is een. De man is de vrouw. This is what we learned in lesson 27 about the comparative. The second answer is the superlative, which does not make sense to use here because we are comparing. There is man and vrouw in the sentence. In Dutch, it is not as in English, where with some words we use more. So that leaves us with the option 1 or 3. And then applying the rules is important. We learned, and that comes back in many lessons, not only the comparative, that when you add an extra syllable, and in this case we add that when we have a long vowel sound and the syllable becomes open, groter, that then we don't have the double vowel. The double vowel with long vowel sounds is only used when the syllable is closed with a consonant, like groot. So this is the correct answer. Ik heb een ring. With the normal adjective rules, we say de ring, so we should add an extra e. However, goud is a material, it means gold, And in lesson 39 of hashtag Dutch Grammar, I explained that materials are an exception to the adjective rules. With most materials, we use en, een gouden ring. Just like een houten huis, een ijzeren pan, etc. Ik heb een hond. It's de hond. So according the adjective rule, we get an extra a. However, there is another spelling rule. We need to pay attention when the last letter of the adjective is an F or an S. Here, the F is not preceded with a short vowel. So then it changes into a V. Lieve hond. Next one. Which sentence is correct? Apparently, two things are tested here. The plural of kind, and that is kinderen, something we discussed in lesson 44. There are a few nouns that end on eren in the plural. And the other thing, again, the adjective rule. It's plural, and then we always get the extra a, because plural nouns are always de words. Which sentence is correct? Okay, again, the adjective rule. We add the a only when it is in front of a noun. Here it is at the end of the sentence with the use of the linking verb zijn, to be. So it's one of the upper two. Then you need to know. Glas is a noun with a vowel change to form the plural, from short a to long a, and then it also has an S that changes into a Z. We discussed that in lesson 44. So the correct answer, de glazen zijn schoon. What is correct? Melk is uncountable. With uncountable nouns, we do not use the indefinite article un. Lesson 39. And then, is it in Engels or in het Engels? In lesson 21, I discussed the differences between Dutch and English on when to use an article. In Dutch, it is different than in English. We say in het Engels. Next one. Here also you need to know the rules to construct the plural. Nouns that end on a long vowel, like camera and photo, get apostrophe plus s in the plural. So that's correct in sentence 1 and incorrect in sentence 4. Then, brieven. Is that correct? No, it is like with lieve hond. An extra syllable when adding an, f changes into v. So it should be brieven. And then we have zusjes and vrouws. Which one is incorrect? Well, in lesson 12 we learned when an s is added and when an. And when a noun ends on an a, we add the s. That does not count for nouns ending on a w. So it should be vrouwen, but zusjes is okay. Answer 1 is correct. Next page. Fiets staat daar. What is the correct possessive adjective? We discussed that in lesson 18. Jij is the personal pronoun when it is the subject, lesson 3. Jou is the personal pronoun as the object. Lesson 17. And with possessive adjectives, we do not add the adjective a except with ons, onze, first person plural. But that is not the matter here. So jou, we, is correct. Again, the personal pronouns. First subject, then the verb. Here, as the subject, both options are correct, because ze and hij are personal pronouns as the object. Lesson 3. So it's about the object here. And only haar is a personal pronoun as an object. Lesson 17. Next one. Okay, first the demonstrative pronoun is required. It is de fiets. And in lesson 19 I explained that with de we can have die or deze, because dit and dat are only used with het words. After van, and that is lesson 17, we get the personal pronoun as an object. That can only be mij. Although it indicates possession, jou with wij is not correct here because possessive adjectives, lesson 18, are only used in front of a noun. Next one. That is discussed in lesson 16. With het words, when we refer to them in a sentence without naming the noun, we use the word het. Het boek is dik, ik heb het gelezen. Then, demonstrative pronouns again. Lesson 19. Book is a het word, het boek. So we can choose between dit and dat. Dit we use when it is here, close, and dat when it is there, further away. Answer 1. Next one. This is a combination again of the demonstrative pronoun, lesson 19, and the personal pronoun as an object, lesson 17. Het huis, so only dit is correct. To indicate possession, we use van plus personal pronoun as an object. Dit huis is van mij. Vergeet sleutels. Vergeet is singular, so jullie is not correct. Zich is a reflexive pronoun, lesson 33. However, vergeten is not a reflexive verb. And here the possessive adjective is needed. Of the 3 remaining answers, that can only be uw. U vergeet uw sleutels. If you come somewhere for the first time, you have never been there. Never is nooit. Lesson 23 about indefinite words and negation. Next page, verb conjugation. Again, the spelling rules. Lopen. Long vowel O. So, double O when the syllable is closed by a consonant. Blijven, lesson 4, the V becomes an F if it is not followed by a syllable. Third answer is correct. Gaan is one of the one-syllable verbs that does not end on an. The conjugation is discussed in lesson 30. It is jij gaat, but we learned that we use the ik form with inversion, when je or jij is placed after the verb. Therefore, ga jij. Hij vanavond niet. The verb kunnen is irregular. Lesson 28 about modal verbs. Hij kan. Next one. Meenemen is a separable verb. It does split up. Lesson 32. The prefix we put in the end of the sentence. Therefore, answer 2 is correct. Next question, which imperative is wrong? Open doen is also a separable verb, lesson 32. The imperative is discussed in lesson 35. One form of the imperative is the infinitive. Therefore, option 2 is not wrong. We also learned that with the imperative the separable verb splits up. Option 4 is okay. And option 3 as well, because in the polite form we add the subject u. So option 1 is wrong. That is not a correct imperative, which means that it is the correct answer to the question. Herinneren, lesson 33, is a reflexive verb. It comes with a reflexive pronoun. The reflexive pronoun that refers to the subject ik, first person singular, is me. Ik herinner me dat niet. De krant, op tafel. Lesson 20. We need a verb that indicates a position. The krant, the newspaper, has a horizontal position. It is very difficult to put a newspaper in an upright position on the table. So, answer 3, licht, is correct. De politie. This is a difficult one. In lesson 32, we discussed that there are separable verbs and that there are verbs that look like separable verbs, but in fact they don't split up. I teach the trick that if you know which syllable is stressed, you can find out whether the verb is separable or not. When the stress is on the prefix, the verb is often separable. Here, the verb is ondervragen. Ondervragen. The stress is not on the prefix, so the verb does not split up. Answer 1 is correct. By the way, this is something that you need to learn. In written form, you cannot see where the stress is. Next page. We see a question and a normal sentence. With a question, we have inversion word order. Lesson 8. In a normal main clause, we have first the subject and then the verb. So, answer 2. Wanneer ga je naar de film? Ik ga nu naar de film. Which word order is correct? Lesson 7. Normally, the subject is in the first place of a main clause. However, we can put other information in the first place if we want to stress it. In that case, it is followed by inversion. So, verb in the second place and subject in the third place. That is only the matter in the first sentence. Next one. The difficulty here is the word fiets. We know fiets as a noun, de fiets, the bicycle. But it can also be the conjugation of the first person singular of the verb fietsen. Ik fiets. I cycle. Now, ik heb means I have. So it's logical that it is followed by the noun fiets. This question is about negation, when to use geen and when to use niet. Lesson 25. Geen we put in front of a noun. Niet we put after a verb. So the answer: ik heb geen fiets, ik fiets niet. Then, a question and an answer. De les begint 9 uur. Lesson 13. We use om to indicate a specific time. In English we ask at what time. Lesson 8 about question words. In Dutch we ask Hoe laat? Answer 2. Prepositions again. Lesson 13. You live in, but you're coming from. In Dutch, Sinterklaas komt uit. And with the specific date, we use op. Answer 4. Next one. A question and an answer. With a question, we have inversion. So after the question word, we put the verb is. So 1 and 3 are incorrect. Juli is not a specific date, it is a month. Then we use in. And by the way, our summer school is not only in July, we have 4 possible arrival dates in July, but also in August. More information on dutchsummerschool.nl. Then, we know from lesson 38 about verb preposition combinations that it is bang zijn voor. So, voor is the preposition. Ik ben bang voor onweer. But now the question. Lesson 43. Question words in combination with prepositions. Here you need to know that with a thing we write waar plus preposition attached. With a person we have first the preposition and then wie. Onweer is not a person, so it should be waarvoor. Koop je geen fiets? Question mark. Waarom means why. Hoeveel means how much. So it should be waarom. Ik heb geld. Negation, uncountable noun, lesson 40, geen geld. Answer 4 is correct. Then, next page. Verb preposition combinations, lesson 38. Genieten van means to enjoy. Then, hij vergeet, lesson 37. Vergeten is one of the verbs that when you combine it with an infinitive, we add the word te in front of the infinitive. Hij is fietsen. Lesson 42. The verb zijn in combination with an infinitive, but with aan het in front of the infinitive indicates that the subject is busy with the activity. Aan het. Answer 4. De kok. Lesson 30. Laten is a verb that you can combine with an infinitive. Then we put the infinitive in the end. This is not a verb that comes with te, so answer 4 is correct. Zij. Lesson 36. The verbs staan, zitten, liggen, hangen and lopen indicate a position. We can use them in combination with another verb to indicate someone is doing something in a certain position. In that case, the position verb is the finite verb. The other verb comes with te plus infinitive in the end. Answer 4. Zitten te lezen. Ben jij een boek? Again, lesson 42. The construction zijn plus aan het plus infinitive. The first answer is correct. Marieke gaat. Lesson 30. We can use gaan with the infinitive of another verb. Afwassen is a separable verb. Lesson 31. But the infinitive of a separable verb is not split up. So the correct answer, Marieke gaat afwassen. Zij kan. We see the word herinneren. Reflexive verb lesson 33. The reflexive pronoun is zich. Then lesson 28 about modal verbs. Kunnen can be combined with the infinitive of another verb that is placed at the end of the sentence. Answer 2. The last questions, we are almost there. These questions are about the past tense and the present perfect. The last 5 lessons of the course #DutchGrammar. Always important to know is whether the last letter is part of het kofschip. Some other teachers use soft ketchup. Maken en fietsen, both regular verbs in the past tense. The last letter of the verb when we take away an. Maak, k, in het kofschip. So we use a t, maakte. Now fietsen. Without an, fiets. The s is in het kofschip. So we use a t, fietste. Answer 3. De prins en de prinses. Trouwen. Trouw, w, not in het kofschip. So we use a d, trouwden. Then, leven. A lot of people do this wrong. The infinitive without an, then the last letter is a v, not an f. And the v is not in het kofschip. Therefore you use the d, leefde, and not leefte. Gisteren, ontmoeten, ontmoet, ends on t, and that is in het kofschip. Therefore we add a t. That's the rule, you add a t. Therefore ontmoette with double t. Reizen, the infinitive without an, z, reizen. The z is not in het kofschip. Therefore we add a d, reisde. Now the present perfect. Luisteren is a regular verb. And most regular verbs have hebben in the present perfect. We only shortly discussed the difference between using hebben and zijn in #DutchGrammar. But this will be in detail discussed in #DutchGrammar 2, the follow-up course. Luisteren without an ends on an r, not in het kofschip. So the past participle ends on a d. Heb je goed geluisterd? Answer 2. Hij. Here you need to know the conjugation of hebben. That is lesson 4. And kook, k, in het kofschip. So with t. Answer 4. Heeft gekookt. Hij. Wonen. That is with a d because the n is not in het kofschip. But that's not the question here. Again, the spelling rules. Wonen. O, long vowel sound. When the d is added in the past tense, we need to preserve the long sound because the syllable is now closed by a consonant. So, double O, woonde. Daarna, well, this is one of the irregular verbs of lesson 48. That comes with zijn in the present perfect. So, answer 2. Next one. This is a question. With inversion. First the verb, then the subject. the subject is je. That means we should be careful, because with inversion and je after the finite verb, we use the same form as with ik. So, heb jij. Gereisd. We saw the verb earlier. The infinitive is reizen with a Z, which is not in het kofschip, therefore the past participle ends on a D. And the last question. This is also a verb of lesson 48 that comes with zijn, and with a past participle that is not regular. Zijn gegaan. Answer 4. Now, let's complete our details to see if indeed we made the test without mistakes. It will send the results by email. I'm going to open my inbox on a screen that you cannot see because I don't want the context of my inbox to be visible. Well, now I open the mail. Now I can show it. Here it is. Excellent. 0 mistakes in the test. We did a good job. Okay, now it's time for some statistics. I exported the results of the test and I exported the course progress table of the students who are doing #DutchGrammar. And I matched the two databases to see how the #DutchGrammar premium students score in the test in relation to the progress of the course. Here are the results. The students who are about halfway in the course, so between lesson 20 and 30, because the total amount is 50 lessons, they scored on the average 16.2 mistakes in the test. Of the people who progressed until lesson 40 till 49, the average amount of mistakes was 10.8. But the average amount of mistakes by the people who completed the course is 5.7. Well done. My compliments to you, because that's actually better than I expected. Although I have to make a comment to these figures. First, from a statistic point of view, I still do not have enough data. This is preliminary information based on 98 students. Later I will come with more accurate information. And also, what I do not know is what the students who completed the course did after that. So it could be that these students went on with their studies. We did not measure this directly after completion of the course. So certainly at this stage, I'm still very cautious to make any claims. By the way, the data is not only feedback for you as a student, but also for me as a teacher. Because based on the mistakes in the test, I can see where I can perhaps improve #DutchGrammar, maybe with some bonus material, to really make sure you understand everything better. We are living in the 21st century, and this is one of the benefits of the internet. In 3 weeks' time, we have test results of 2,000 Dutch learners. Put it in a spreadsheet and just see what appears to be difficult for students. And here is what I promised to come up with at the end of the seminar. A top 7 of the most made mistakes. Number 7. Answer 2 is correct. And the most difficult is that komen is with zijn in the present perfect. We discussed this only briefly in #DutchGrammar. If you are a beginner or you have A1 level, don't worry if you did this wrong. In the follow-up course, #DutchGrammar 2, the release is planned in May. This will be discussed in detail. Number 6. Answer 1 is correct. Also logical that this is part of the top 7. Separable verbs and verbs that are not separable but look like one. That is difficult, and don't worry if you did this wrong. It requires a lot of vocabulary to do this correct always, so not so easy and not a priority for beginners to work on that. Number 5. Answer 1. Imperative of separable verbs. That is combining two disciplines. Sounds difficult, but actually it's just something that you can learn quickly. And in my lesson about the imperative, we discussed that. Number 4. Hij vanavond niet. Answer kan. The verb kunnen is irregular and this is something you need to learn. Number 3. Answer 1. Most people do this wrong because they look to the stem. Ik reis. And then they see the S and add a T because the S is in het kofschip. But that's incorrect. You should look to the last letter that we have after we take away an from the infinitive. And that is a Z, and therefore you add a D. Number 2. Answer 1. Here it's the same with the verb reizen. But then also the double T, ontmoeten, is what people do wrong. But number 1, ik heb een gouden ring. Answer 2. And the good thing about this is that now you know it. Most materials get an N when it's an adjective. Gouden ring. You will remember that from today on. Well, if you watched the webinar until here. I would like to thank you for that and for your attention. If you think of making a step forward, if you made more than 15 mistakes in the test, then of course I can recommend you my online course #DutchGrammar. If you scored well in the test, there is no need to buy this, of course, but if you like my way of teaching and you think that learning grammar is much easier with video animation and online exercises, then I recommend to wait a bit. I'm currently working very hard on #DutchGrammar 2, and I expect to be ready somewhere between the end of April and the end of May. Keep following us for the latest news. If you did not yet subscribe to the Learn Dutch email notifications, you can do that on the learndutch.org website. You are not automatically on that list if you did this test, so subscribe and you will receive once a week Dutch lessons per email. And of course, the news when new courses are published. That's it for now. I hope you liked it. I did, and maybe I come up with more live events in the future. Veel succes met Nederlands leren. Tot ziens!